Some of y'all need to practice some Falatia. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Inside Out 2. So, as you know, this month of February we have a theme going on. We technically have a couple themes. Our main theme is that we are going through movies that represent the different forms of love as prescribed by the ancient Greeks. We also have a secondary theme. Some of the movies will also relate to Black History Month, but not every movie will. That's a secondary theme we have. I wanted to integrate that in there as well. But this one is mostly just focused on the form of love. And today we are talking about philotia or philotia or however it's pronounced. Um, this is self-love. Philotia is self-love. And according to the ancient Greeks, it's kind of the like cornerstone of all other forms of love. Everything stems from it. In order to love others, you need to first love yourself. And self love, phalatia, can come in different forms as well. There is healthy and unhealthy self love. Healthy self love comes from a point of like recognizing yourself and just caring about your well being and whatnot, while unhealthy self love is, arrogance, thinking you're the best around and nobody's ever going to get you down and all that shit. It's it's basically a thin line that you got to be careful when walking. But self-love is important. Like mentioned, it is kind of the cornerstone to all other forms of love. So, I was told, and honestly this one I could have guessed myself, that a good movie choice for self-love for Philatia is Inside Out 2. Now, this is going to be an interesting reaction for a number of reasons. Kind of like the most notable being, I did not like the first movie. I am one of the few people who did not like the first Inside Out. Almost at all. In fact, I wouldn't say like I outright hated it, but I actively didn't like it. Um, and there's a couple reasons why. I felt like it was super heavy-handed with its messaging. It really just like threw it in your face and wasn't even trying to be subtle in any way, which in some cases can be good, but I felt like with this movie, it's just like it felt like it was talking down to you. On top of that, I hate Joy. The character of Joy, I hate her with a passion. And it's not because of the actor or anything like that. It's because of, at least in the first movie, I don't know how she's portrayed here, but she's the villain. She is 100% the bad guy. Everything is her fault. All the bad shit that happens, everything they have to overcome to help Riley, it's all on her. And she never even apologizes for this shit. She never acknowledges that it's all her fault. And it's annoying to me. On top of it, I also just don't like any character, like even outside of Joy. Joy I hate, but all the other characters are like so fucking bland and one dimensional. Like there's nothing to them. Riley is such a generic base character who has absolutely no personality. She's nothing. She is a nothing of a character. Like I I don't know anything about her because there's nothing to know. And all the emotions are extremely boring and bland and one dimensional as well. It's like, and I understand that's kind of the point. It's like they're taking one emotion and making the character just a representative of that. But it's like, I'm sure you could have done this in a much better way, in a more three dimensional way. Because anger is not just yelling and blowing up. Anger comes in a lot of different forms and can be showcased in a lot of different ways. Sadness is not just moping around and pity and self-pity. Again, there is a lot of nuance and depth that is just not explored. And it never made sense to me how the movie did so well and was so popular, and people were like, apparently teachers were showing it in school to to help their kids like understand that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, maybe kindergartners, but it's like, this movie talks down to kids. It treats kids as if they're idiots, as if they don't understand what emotions are. Kids know that emotions are more complex than what this movie showed. It's ridiculous. And I've never understood the appeal of it. Like I said, I don't hate it. There are movies out there that I hate, that I actually really, really can't stand. The first Inside Out isn't really one of them. It's a movie that I would say is not good, is below center. If I gave it a rating out of 10, it would maybe be like a 3. But I've seen worse. I've seen movies that actively like piss me off. This movie I just think is a waste of time. It's bad, but it's not terrible. It's something that I watched I think twice and that's it. And I never really thought about ever watching again. And when this sequel was announced and when the trailers started coming out and stuff, I had absolutely no interest in watching this. I had no interest. Because I didn't like the first one. Why would I watch the sequel? But I'm willing to give anything a shot. And Venom donated for this. So I feel it is right to check this out. I feel like it's a good idea. Because for all I know, this movie could do better. I know it has a bunch of new emotions. And I know it starts delving like into Riley's more teenage years and stuff, so it might start going more into the nuances of emotion that, mind you, should have still been gone into in the first place, but maybe it'll start actually covering that because I don't know, it just seems like this is a kind of movie that would think that, emotion only gets nuanced when you become a teenager, which is not true at all. But I feel like I feel like this movie is probably going to think that, or the people who made the movie and everything, Disney, just when you go down the line. Um, so I'm going to be completely honest with you, and if this affects you being able to watch this reaction, I completely understand. Um, I don't have high hopes for this movie. I try to go into pretty much every movie with an open mind and everything, and I'm going to do the best I can. But I'm not going to lie and tell you that I'm excited to watch this. I'm not going to lie and tell you that I want to watch this. I'm more or less doing this to get it out of the way because it was requested, so I'm going to react to it, and I'm getting it out of the way now. Um, so we'll see how this goes. Hope for the best, but expect the worst. And I'll just give my honest thoughts based solely on the merits of the film itself. I will, if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong, and I'll honestly welcome that. But we'll see. So Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Let's get into this. Hold up just a second there. Before you click that link down in the description below to go to today's reaction, I just wanted to take this moment real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions, with 2 on Wednesday. We also have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but upload them on the weekend. And don't forget about all the awesome gaming content over on the Princess of Gaming channel. Every single day of the week, we have some awesome Let's Plays for you. A bunch of different things to check out, and more coming in the future. And don't forget to click that subscribe button or like the video if you really enjoy the content I'm putting out. There will be more to come in the future. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get this going. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Sorry for the light coming in, just that time of day and everything. So I wanted to look up the Oscars and everything, the Academy Awards, because I believe this was nominated for animated feature film. The awards are going to be at the beginning of March and everything, but I looked it up, and yeah, it's one of the animated feature film nominations, along with Flow, which I've heard people say is good, but I know nothing about it. Memoir of a Snail, I've never even heard of that. Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. That's actually surprising that Wallace and Gromit made the list. And The Wild Robot, which was my favorite movie of 2024. And the one I honestly just think should win. But I can't say on most of them, but I will say that this movie just does not, hold up to at least Wild Robot. I think Wild Robot should win, but also these award shows are all rigged to shit anyway. It's like the winner was already decided before the nominations were even announced. It's probably going to be Inside Out 2 because Disney probably paid them off for it to be Inside Out 2. And even if it is something like Wild Robot or one of the other ones that, again, I don't know, then it's they just, I guess, got there first and paid the money first or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's award shows don't actually mean shit. Anyway, the point of these afterthoughts should be the movie, though. So let's talk about it. So as I said in the pre-thoughts, I didn't like the first movie. As I said, it was bad, but not terrible or anything. I was saying a 3 out of 10 or so. This movie is notably better. I will say that. But the best I can say is it's still very mid. Because while there's certain good aspects to it, and it definitely delves into emotions more complex, it still treats the emotions, even the more complex ones, as very simplistic. It is just factually wrong about multiple things, which I talked about plenty during the reaction. And let's be honest, I just couldn't get into the story of it. The story I just find kind of boring. I'm halfway through the movie and I'm thinking, when is the actual story going to start? And then I'm realizing, oh wait, we're halfway through the movie. The story has started. This is it. It feels like it was just second nature to the intended message of the film. It feels like they were trying to push the message over actually making a cohesive film in terms of its plot and narrative. Because it's the idea they're trying to go with is Riley is going to this hockey camp, has to impress to get on the team, and has to deal with these new emotions coming in and, kind of making things complicated and all. And meanwhile, anxiety and the other new complex emotions push out the old classics and take over and everything. And it's just it's so simplistic. Everything about this is so simplistically done that it just feels it's this movie is not as much as the first one, but it still feels like it's looking down on its viewer. It feels like there could have been more the themes that are more complex than the first one still feel way too simple for reality. Again, a kid watching this film is going to be entertained. But I feel like even a kid would probably understand that emotions are more complex than anything this movie shows. That things are not as simplistic and basic as this tries to portray it. Anxiety, for example, covers a lot of things and presents itself in a lot of ways. And this boils anxiety down to one specific view. And it's just. Same with embarrassment. And ennui wasn't even ennui. There was nothing ennui about that. That was more like chill, for lack of a better word. Um, like being relaxed. If you said that the emotion was relaxation or something, which isn't really an emotion, mind you, but if you said that, at least it would have been accurate, even if it's not like really an emotion per se. Um, it wasn't boredom. Nothing about that was boredom. It was a complete misunderstanding. Envy was, let's be honest, barely envious. It was like the very base amount that you could describe as envy without actually really going into that. And it's like the funny thing to me is like this series Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I mean, does a lot of things better than this in terms of many different factors, but in terms of the emotion of envy and showing that through the character of the same name in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, it is like so drastically better portrayed there. There's so much more nuance and everything. I feel like this movie and just I guess these movies together like work for kids, but for an older mind, like teenagers to adults and everything, for me, in my opinion at least, these movies are very like they're not well made. They're very like intentionally misleading, I feel. Because they're trying to dumb it down for kids. But it comes across as intentionally misleading in order to make it more digestible. And personally for me, and again, sorry for the sun. Personally for me, that really muddies the message. Because like especially when the movie is about complex emotions, but you don't really show the complexity of these emotions. It's just it really takes away from what this is trying to say for me. I appreciate certain things about it. Like I said, I appreciate that at the end, they acknowledge the fact that Joy was in the wrong again, and that Joy, you know, throwing away and hiding all of these bad sides to Riley was, you know, hurting her as well. But it's like it's not enough for me. Again, if we're going by the same kind of scale, like where, like I said, for the first movie, counting as like about a 3 out of 10 or so, this would be like maybe about a 5, maybe upwards to 6, but no higher than that out of 10. But I honestly, five is probably more accurate to me. 6 is pushing it. That's if I want to be super generous. 5 is more accurate, I feel, out of 10. It's just kind of mid. It's just, it exists. I don't dislike it as much as the first movie, but I still wouldn't say I'm a fan of it. It's one of those movies that it just doesn't quite get it. And in my opinion, I can't get into it. I mean, I still don't like these characters. This movie didn't change that. Riley is still super one dimensional and also kind of just good at everything. We're just going to make her like a Mary Sue. And I don't use that term lightly. I try not to call characters Mary Sues because too many people, especially online these days, just use that term all willy nilly. So I pretty much never use it. And I even argue against when people do use it for like characters like Ray in the Star Wars movies and whatnot, because that's very much using it incorrectly. But here you have a character who is super bland and one dimensional, who has like no real depth to her character. Even though the movie is about giving her depth, she really doesn't have it. She's also, on top of that, just good at everything. She's super creative. She's good at sports. She's like good. She's good at everything. They made a point of basically saying that at the end, and kind of at the beginning too. It's like the only thing that kind of keeps her, that you could say kind of keeps her from being a Mary Sue, is having negative emotions, I guess, but that's not accurate either. That's not an accurate interpretation because Mary Sues can have negative emotions and can do negative things. A Mary Sue is perfect in her portrayal, but that doesn't mean she's literally perfect. Again, you have to really view things with an extremely simplistic view. That's a little redundant, but you know what I mean. You have to see things with an extremely simplistic point of view in order to view a Mary Sue character as just that. It's like Mary Sue there's no such thing as a Mary Sue character or a character in general who doesn't have some level of uh, variance to them. Like you'll never see a character that's just one thing completely. Like you even see with like anger in this. He even makes a point of saying at one point he can't be angry all the time, and he shows there's a couple points where he's happy or supportive and whatnot. And Jesus, the sun is like I really apologize. I've tried to be over here where it's not like blinding me, but also like washing out my face. I should have closed the curtain before I started with these afterthoughts, but oh well, nothing I can do about it now. But yeah, it's like you're just not going to be able to do that because as a human, you naturally have that complexity to you. And it's like any kind of character that you happen to create is going to have at least some degree of it. Even when you're trying to create a pretty flat character, like if that's the intent, they're going to have some level of variance to them. Because that's just how we see people. And characters are a reflection of how we see people. It's a subconscious thing, whether we want to put it in there or not. So it's like, you have to view it from the perspective of like what we tend to get. And based on like comparative to other like movies, shows, games, etc., Riley is a comparatively flat, boring character. And none of the new emotions are that entertaining to me either. Like just from an entertaining perspective, I didn't care about the old emotions. I didn't care about them anymore in this movie. I didn't care about the new emotions. The random like side characters that they threw in, like the Dora the Explorer dog guy voiced by Ron Funches, or the anime video game Crush character. They're boring. They're completely boring and uninteresting. They're just like that one guy from the first movie. I want to say his name was like Bing Bong or something. It was something like that. Completely pointless, like uninteresting, unlikable character. Worst character of the first film. And these characters are pretty much just as useless. And that includes Pouchy. They're just as pointless, and they're just thrown in there just for shits and giggles. And in the case of this film, to have a completely different art style just to try and be unique or interesting just ends up feeling very disconnected. Um, the one the one thing, like I said, that I can say positively here is the fact that they did right the wrongs in the end, and on all levels, not just with the obvious of like joy and um, having to work with anxiety and all the other emotions having to work together, the new and the old. It's like, Jesus. It's like that was like it needed to happen, otherwise it would have been like actively terrible if they didn't accomplish at least that. But there's other things that they wrapped up as well, such as Riley apologizing to her friends in the end, making things right. Even admitting to the other girls that she was from Minnesota and not Michigan. Even though we didn't see that happen, we saw the after effects of it. And I would say that I would say that there's certain aspects of this that did get me emotional. I won't lie. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. You may have noticed that near the end, like there was parts where I was getting a little choked up and whatnot while I was talking. I was getting a little sniffly. Um, and the reasons for that were mostly because of the music. The musical score in this is great. And the music is something that is known to really help with eliciting emotions. It's why a lot of movies will like use like specific tones of music and styles of music to elicit like a sad moment or a moment that's meant to make the viewer cry. And a lot of times the reason why the viewer does cry during those scenes is not because of what's happening, but because of the music. Music is extremely important with eliciting emotions in media. And so the music was super well done. I'll give it that. And like I said, the voice acting was good. The animation was good. Um, there's there's a lot that is good about these movies, but it's more on the technical side of things. I feel when it comes to the actual story and characters, that's where it falls flat. And I've talked about this before, but that's usually the biggest things I look for in a movie or a series or anything like this. The story and the characters are the most important things to me because to me, no piece of media can exist or even function without them. Like a piece of media can exist and function without good animation or good voice acting. That stuff is a great bonus. It helps it. It definitely helps make it work. But you can have a series or a movie that has really subpar animation or I guess like filmmaking or whatever in terms of like live action stuff. Um, but it can still be good. You can have a movie with like poor choices in music, but it can still be a good movie. But if you have a movie that has a bad story or bad characters, that's going to ruin the movie. And that's what keeps this at only like a 5 for me. Because while all the technical stuff is great, the stuff that in my eyes really matters isn't. And there's one thing I definitely have to talk about because this was something that when the movie was coming out and then when it did come out, everybody was talking about. So I want to talk about Riley and Val. Because the advertising for this movie, and I did see a trailer or two for this when it came out, the advertising for this movie really hammered in their relationship to the point that it made it look like and feel like to a lot of people like Riley had a crush on Val. Not that she looked up to her or saw her as a possible friend, but the advertising made it look like she had a crush on Val. And then the movie came out, and a lot of people complained about this because that was not what was portrayed in the movie. And it definitely is not what was portrayed in the movie, by the way. A lot of people complained about this, saying that the trailers were queer baiting us. And considering Disney's history with queer representation, especially in their movies, a lot of people didn't take well to that. There was a lot of complaints, a lot of issues that people were having in regards to how the movie was falsely advertising this relationship as being something other than it was. Let's be honest, after seeing this now, the trailers made it seem like it was going to be a bigger deal than it was. The relationship wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, Riley and Val in the end, like, I guess they're kind of friends. I don't know. It doesn't really go into it. It's not really a big part of the film. It's just kind of there. It just kind of exists. And, like, yeah, you could say, like, oh, but anxiety, her big things were about how Val would see her. But, yes, it's also about how her parents would see her, how the coach would see her. It was about a lot more than just how Val would see Riley. That was just one small portion of the motivation for anxiety and all of that. So it's like the trailer made it seem like it was going to be a lot bigger of a deal than it was. Almost like it was going to be the singular motivating factor for everything of this film, and it wasn't. It just wasn't. And so, yeah, I can see people's arguments saying that the trailer's queer baited. And again, knowing how Disney tends to handle this shit, which is not very good at all, it wouldn't surprise me if it was originally meant to be a crush, and Disney executives forced them to change it. It would not surprise me. Speaking though of characters who are kind of not a big deal at all, Riley's friends were barely characters at all in this. Like, I talk about Riley barely having a personality, but, like, her friends are barely even characters in this film. They're plot devices. They're plot devices to explore Riley's emotions, basically. And in the end, it's just like, that you could have taken them out and it would have done nothing to this film. Honestly, you could have taken Val out as a specific character and it would have done nothing to this film. And again, that kind of goes with my issues on how, like, the character work in this was handled. It just, I was not a fan of that. Um, yeah. Oh, also, they set up something that was never capitalized on. I just remembered that. The deep, dark secret, Riley's deep, dark secret, nothing ever came of that. They set that up and even specifically said, when they were like, aren't you coming? Like, when they were escaping, and it's like, not now or not yet. It was basically saying, oh, we're going to come back to this. Never did. Never did. And you could say, like, oh, maybe that's like setting up for a future movie. It's like, wow, really, like really having a lot of God, what's the word? My mind's blanking. Having a lot of confidence there. Let's just go with that. That wasn't the word I was trying to think of, but really having a lot of confidence there, to try and assume you're going to have all these more movies, which I think I heard something about, like, they're planning for a bunch more movies, like, leading into Riley's adulthood and motherhood and everything. It's just like, wow, you are really, like, pushing the envelope on that one, considering how Disney tends to work and everything with its movies. Honestly, it's lucky that you got a sequel in the first place. So don't try to force like this idea that you're going to get a bunch more. It's probably not going to happen. You might get one more if you're lucky. And that's not even guaranteed. But it's like, yeah, that was set up and it made it come across with how it was written and expressed that it was going to happen in this film. It didn't make it sound like it was going to be like in the deep, dark future and everything. No. It made it sound like, oh, that was going to come to play by the end of this film to where it's going to be some big moment that really, like, not necessarily saves the day, but it comes in clutch when needed, you know? And it just never happened. And nothing ever came of that. Nothing ever happened with it. It's like either they forgot about it or, again, they were planning it for the future and just wrote it in improperly in that regard. It was just poorly handled there. So it's like that never even came to pass, even though that was clearly set up to. I'm not really disappointed by this movie because, like I said, I went into this hoping for the best but expecting the worst. And like I said, it impressed me more than the first did. It was much better than the first. It definitely improved. But that's not saying too much. Because honestly, most things would have been an improvement. And even though it improved, it wasn't by this massive amount. It's still mid at best. But I will say it did absolutely get across the form of love we were talking about. Philatia? Self-love. It very much got that point across. That was kind of the main theme they were going for. And so, yeah, this was definitely a very fitting movie for this theme for February. But I want to hear what you thought. It's probably going to be very different from what I thought. You probably enjoyed this. Everyone seems to have. People are saying this should win like movie or animated film of the year, which I very much disagree with. But especially again when Wild Robot's in the running. But I'd love to hear your thoughts anyway, because I'm completely fine with hearing thoughts that differ from my own. In fact, I not only welcome it, but ask for it. I want people to share thoughts that disagree with me. Because we're all human and we're all allowed to have our own separate views. It's important that we do. And so I want to hear what you think. What did you think of this movie, of the messages and themes, the characters, etc.? Let me know your thoughts on all of that and more in the comments below. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.